Alrighty, thank you everybody for joining us. Hey, real quick round of applause and thank you to Infoday, Ken, and the staff for putting the event together. So thank you, Ken. First introductions, my name is Joe Eberly. I'm the Vice President of a little small company out here in the Brake area called 4M with a very large mission. Our mission is to map all the utilities across the entire United States, put it into one platform and make it available for stakeholders in the infrastructure and utility world. Here today joined by our friend and colleague Dan. Dan, do you want to introduce yourself and your company?
Sure, thanks Joe. My name's Dan Checchia. I work with Colliers Engineering and Design. I'm the National Discipline Lead for the Subsurface Utility Engineering Group, and I'm also the president of the SUE Association.
All righty, thank you, Dan. We have a little bit of time to do a Q&A session. We have some questions queued up that I'll be asking Dan as the expert on the stage today. So Dan, question number one, digital transformation and infrastructure efficiency. How can digital transformation and data expedite infrastructure projects through planning and design stages while minimizing underground utility and geologic risk?
That's a loaded question. There's a lot of moving parts in there, but to start with the planning part, if we've got good data coming in, it will help the schedule of the project inevitably. Having good information in the hands of our staff and our field staff to go out there and do a comprehensive sweep for utilities will definitely expedite the planning process. The design process also benefits from that as well because it enables us to translate more accurate or precise information to our designers and helps them make informed decisions. It'll move along that process for the design phase, helping them make better decisions and minimizing risk for any of their proposed design elements. For the utilities, it allows them to start talking about risk mitigation. The stormwater folks were mentioning that earlier. They want to know where they're going to be impacts so that they can prepare for that, whether it's funding, whether it's research for compensable interests, or it's going to be funded by the agency that's going to give them some contributions to do a relocation. Geological, that's a little bit of a tricky part because geology, there's a map that the National Society of Geophysics puts together with different soil compositions. So there's different tools that we use to do geophysical prospecting. So some places have better soil suitable for ground penetrating radar, such as Florida. North Carolina, not so much. Georgia with the clay. Out west, Texas. So it's kind of hit or miss, but that's the beauty of what we do. We use multiple pieces of equipment to do a comprehensive sweep, so we're not relying on one silver bullet. There's no silver bullet out there. No one's put together X-ray glasses where we can look underground and find everything. So that's the kind of stuff that we do.
Yet. Right. So thanks, Dan. Switching gears, risk and advancements in technology. What are the risks of delaying technological advancements in subsurface utility engineering, or SUE, and what challenges must we address as these advancements are implemented both at the local level and then ultimately across the U.S.?
So I'm a big advocate for technology, but it needs to be vetted first. We can't just grab the shiniest new piece of equipment that's out there and think it's going to give us really good results. And that's part of the data acquisition part of performing subsurface utility engineering. It's the quality of data. That's why we have quality levels in regards to records research, above ground pertinence and mapping, utility designation and locating. So we need to focus on the accuracy or the precision of the technology that we're using to make sure that when we're collecting the data using this new technology, it's going to suffice or meet the expectations of our clients. The other thing that we need to understand is what our client is educated in. Do they know the standards? Do they know the ASCE 38 standard? So that when we deliver information, whatever format it may be, they understand the quality in order to mitigate their risks for their design.
So speaking of the standards, ASCE standards, what are the, let's say, the primary hurdles in adopting digital transformation when there are standards in place, specifically in the SU industry itself?
So some of the hurdles, you have to have a subsurface utility engineering consultant that understands how to collect the information. This isn't something that you can just walk into the store, buy it, put it on, and it's going to make a noise, and you're going to put a mark on the ground and say there's a utility there. There's a lot of training, understanding, a lot of interpolation that goes on with these different pieces of equipment. So in order to collect the data in the fashion in correlation to the standard, which is, if you're designating or you're performing a locate. Now, the terminology that we use in the industry is different from the contract locating. When we go out and we paint a line on the ground, on the surface, we call it designating per the standard. And then when we dig it up and visually verify it, that's locating. Where you have the 811 system, they refer to as locating. So that's always a big misnomer with the terminology in regards to what we do when we mark for design, and other 811 firms that do one called locating for construction. They're more for damage prevention, where we're marking for design. So a lot of the hurdles is just educating our clients on those things. That's what we do. That's the information that we're giving to you. Our tolerances are a lot smaller because we understand how to use the equipment, and what we're defining with that mark that we map and we provide to you is a lot different than what the one called locating industry is putting on the ground.
Gotcha. Thank you. Let's talk about something taboo, each other's taxes and how it's spent. From a funding perspective, we've seen sort of historic increases in infrastructure funding that has become available over the last, I'd say 5 or so years, even more so in the last couple of years. What are the key challenges in managing sort of large amounts of money and large amounts of infrastructure improvements and projects into the market? And then particularly, how do we maintain the transparency that's required around the spending of these yours and I tax monies?
Yeah, well, there's a lot of money that is being allocated for transportation projects. Now, when you're talking specifically about utilities, the utility field is a very niche type of field where there's, engineers, surveyors, geophysicists that do what they do. But the problem is our survey folks, there's not a lot of surveyors. And it's a field that it's a lot of older folks that have been surveying for a long time. So we need to replenish that field, because without surveyors, we can't collect our information and share it with our folks on the design side. Education, experience, motivation. A lot of times, even though there's a lot of money being allocated for these projects to map utilities, you get the old adage, if it's not broke, don't fix it. But here's the thing. We all are advancing with technology, with CAD and other platforms to share information. You have different standards like the 7522, which is the as-built standard. It's giving you a guideline on how you can organize and collect your data, and you can share it with other agencies, other entities, other municipalities. It's a good record keeping. It has intelligent data. It's a good guideline for any city or municipality to adopt and start instituting. But without the motivation, without the experienced people to do it, it's just not going to go anywhere. So those are some of the hurdles I see in the short term.
Yeah, so switching gears again, let's talk a little bit about post-design. We've talked about how data can improve the quality of the design process. Switching gears to post-design, what are some of the impacts does this increased or improved level of data have on things like field conflict remediation efforts?
We don't really like to find utilities post-design. We try to do our best job up front in the design. Usually, in a typical DOT project, in the design schedule, you usually have between 2 to 5 years to complete your project. So there's multiple meetings, multiple interactions with the stakeholders, opportunities to really go and figure out the puzzle of this subsurface traffic jam. Although you'll never find everything, if there are situations where you're in design, it's always good to have good record keeping. Record keeping because you need to understand what you found and how you found it. if you want to go back out there and recreate what you found previously to justify why you might have missed something or why you painted it a certain way. There's situations where a project gets completed and there's other installations, whether it's utility installations or other small, improvements that might occur that don't get captured in your previous sweep of utilities. So that might be an instance where in post-design, oh, where did this come from? Well, it was never there. It's newly installed. It was permitted after this project was completed. If there's a situation where there's something that was not identified in the initial sweep, then you have to go back and, do some post-mortem on what you did and see why it was missed, why it was mismarked. So there's tools that we can bring to the field. And obviously during construction, when we do our investigation, it's more for design purposes. So there's, vacuum excavation processes that we can utilize to help verify utilities at certain areas where there's conflicts. If there's something that we need to go and revisit, we have those capabilities. But at construction, usually there's bigger, heavier equipment on. They have some excavators, they can dig up some bigger pits, but we're working in small envelopes to identify utilities during design.
Gotcha, thank you. So next question. Does digital transformation and an organization's ability to transition, let's say digitally, is there a difference between how a large company, either an engineering firm or a survey firm, might approach that versus let's say a smaller local or a regional engineering or survey firm? And all things being equal, if both can transform, is there a competitive balancing going on with the adoption of digital transformation efforts within those two spectrum of organizations?
Well, you got to get on the bus or you'll be left at the station, right? You have to, if you're going to play in this game, you're going to have to invest in your people. You're going to have to invest in technology, and you're going to have to invest in, training to make sure you're using those pieces of equipment correctly. You're learning to understand what you're getting back in return when you have a piece of equipment in your hand. You have to set up SOPs for your field processes. There's different techniques in regards to how we find certain utilities, instituting some GPR methods, things like that. So obviously, if you work for a bigger company, there's a little bit more flexibility. You have a bigger pot of money to work with. There's a lot more liability and risk with a bigger company. Smaller companies, might have limited budget, but they still have to train and educate and, put some kind of effort in so that they can ensure that they're doing a proper utility investigation. At the end of the day, you have to provide a deliverable to your client the best that you can in regards to identifying as many of the utilities that are underneath the ground.
So when you're managing the potential use of or acquisition of new technology or new tools and techniques, what are some of the key things that you consider or evaluate in making a decision to adopt a technology or move to something different or stay the same?
Okay. Well, one of the biggest things that we're considering is obviously the cost, because we have a large group. So it's not just purchasing equipment for certain areas, but we're looking at the overall entire group that we currently manage. The efficiency of this piece of equipment, what kind of results are we going to get? Is it going to be accurate or precise? So those are some of the factors when we're looking into making a leap into some kind of new technology or new equipment. Some of the other stuff that we also, is it multifaceted? Is it not just a piece of equipment that can go out and designate utilities, but is there some kind of GPS capabilities? Can it also map information for us at the same time so that we can start building our sketches and our deliverables right in the field? So these are things that we take into consideration when we're looking at new pieces of equipment and things that can help our process.
Gotcha. So let's wrap up. I think we have about 2-3 minutes left with the if you could wave the magic wand question, and 5 to 10 years down the road, what would you like to see in the industry in terms of advancement in either damage prevention or reduction in utility strikes, becoming more efficient or more productive as an industry, specifically focusing on the utility portion of projects that are out there. Wave that magic wand.
Yeah. So there's been a push with robotic designating units to go out there and program to collect designation. In order to do that, you have to program it. You can't teach it. It's a computer. You're going to program it to understand things. So then there's the talk about AI capabilities when you're getting large sets of data, rather than having somebody sit at a desk and sort through that data and slice it and create, utilities. You can have some artificial intelligence look at massive amounts of data in a short period of time and deliver a nice 3D network based on GPR results. Those are some things that we've seen, and people are really talking about, and it's kind of taken some traction in the SUE industry, as well as mounting some EM equipment on drones and just flying that over a site and just sitting there and just operating it on the side. So these are all kind of technological things that we've seen that are getting some traction, and hopefully in the next 5 to 10 years. There'll still be some room for humans, but a lot of the robotic stuff, it looks like it's really, really interesting.
Yeah, I think to summarize, I think you said X-ray vision, right?
Yeah.
Is that it?
X-ray.
Gotcha. All right, we have about 60 seconds left, so I'm going to open up for one question. Anybody have one question they'd like to ask Dan? Open forum. No questions. Yes.
Do you have updated data for sewer surface line in Brooklyn and Queens, sewer surface line in New York State?
Yeah, great question. I'll just say this, that 4M has been in the market. He asked if 4M Analytics, my company, has data available in New York, correct? Yeah, and the city, of course. The short answer is yes. In fact, 2 weeks ago, we just opened up New York, so we now have our utility data available, not only in the city, but out for everybody who lives outside of the city. We also have data available there. By the way, our approach really is to partner with organizations like Dan's, like Colliers, because delivery of the initial data set is only one factor in ensuring that through that design process, we get as close as we can to the ground truth, and we deliver a quality product so that as you enter into the construction side of it, we're reducing damage, we're minimizing costs, we're getting better and better over time. So 4M views organizations like Dan's as just partners that we need to help lift everybody within the organization. But short answer, yes, we have New York available. So, okay, I think Ken's cutting me off there. So thank you very much, and thank you, Dan, for joining.
Thanks, Joe.